but I think it's time for a little bit of a come to Jesus moment on Buffalo and who they are and what they are this season. I said coming into the season, I thought they were a 9-8 football team. I did not think they were near as talented as a lot of folks were giving them credit for. I didn't think that the defense was going to be as strong as a lot of folks did. And for the record, the defense actually had a lot of potential to be great this year, but they lost their number one linebacker. They're probably the best player in their defense, in all honesty, Matt Milano, for the season. The top corner, Tre'Davious White, he's gone for the season. And I thought Von Miller would make a big impact in this game. He was virtually non-existent for most of the night. So this Buffalo defense, in large part due to injuries, is simply not going to be as good as advertised. This Buffalo offense, now the O-line was fine, good enough. We don't really have high expectations for the O-line. Stephon Diggs, again, in this game, obviously, he's the Bills' number one receiver. Gabe Davis made plays as well. Stephon Diggs, 9 catches for 70, but again, it was Shakir who led the Bills in receiving. So they're fine at wide receiver. They leave some things to be desired, and then the running game is sort of just comes and goes. It's actually been better this year than it's been in years past with Josh Allen, but it's still kind of mid-tier in the NFL. Josh Allen is obviously a spectacular talent, still an elite quarterback. For all the criticism that I've given Josh Allen, I've never once said he's not elite, not a franchise quarterback. I've never said the Bills can't win a Super Bowl with him. I think all those takes, if anybody has them, they should consider getting a new TV or trying to figure out what the game of football really is, because none of those takes would be true. But I sort of alluded to this on Monday's show when they lost to New England. I said, listen, Josh Allen is who Josh Allen is. His highs are really high and his lows, man, they're in the gutter. I mean, in the gutter. But that wasn't always the case when Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator of the Bills. Look back to 2020 when he finished, I think he was second for MVP behind Aaron Rodgers. You look at 2021 when he got off to he had a little rough stretch middle of the season, but got hot at the end of the season and had 2 magnificent playoff games against the Patriots, and then that classic game against the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Despite the loss, he was absolutely fantastic in that game. Brian Daboll being there, the structure that they had in Buffalo sort of limited Josh Allen's mistakes. He wasn't turning the ball over as much. He wasn't committing the reckless plays. If you don't have somebody to sort of reel him in a little bit, he's going to be a little bit of a problem. It's kind of like if you're driving a sports car, you want somebody smart behind the wheel. Somebody's not going to put the car in harm's way. You're not going to, get a call like, "Hey, I just wrecked the Ferrari." Like, "Oh, of course you did, because you were reckless with it." Josh Allen's kind of that guy where he needs an offensive coordinator to sort of reel him in. Okay, slow it down, Josh. And Josh sort of alluded to it, saying, like, I just need to play my game, not thinking about it too much to a certain degree. And I suggested this on Monday. I'm even more sure of it today. I really like Sean McDermott a lot. I've defended him a lot in the past. It's time for a coaching change in Buffalo. It is. How bad is this team situationally? Because when you consider the fact that, again, they're up by, what were they up by 3 last week against the New England Patriots? They're up 3. It's 25-22 with not much time left on the clock. A few minutes left on the clock for Mac Jones. Patriots get the ball back under 2 minutes left. And this defense, albeit they're injured, but this is Mac Jones. This is the New England Patriots offense. It's that offensive line. It's those receivers. It's that quarterback who, let's be honest, have left a lot to be desired this season in totality. And they give up a long drive to win the game, again, in less than 2 minutes. Bad situationally. And then last, I guess, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who had they moved the ball down the field fine against Buffalo, I thought, but this drive stalled a lot. The offensive line kind of struggled a little bit. They couldn't run the ball to save their lives for the vast majority of this game. Baker Mayfield, I'll defend Baker in this regard. He was kind of running for his life for the entire game. And numerous plays. The last couple of drives, Buffalo offensively and defensively were abysmal situationally. So Tampa Bay's last touchdown drive, first of all, they burned 7.5 minutes off the clock, go 92 yards. And again, a lot of these plays are aided by penalties. You had a third down. You had a couple of fourth downs in which they were bailed out by a penalty. You had the situation where on 4th down and 10 for the Buffalo 24, when Baker completed that touchdown to Evans down the left sideline, it's like, again, you don't know that the ball's not going to Mike Evans. It's desperation situation. The ball's going to the best player in the field. Well, then Buffalo gets it back. So Tampa Bay goes for 2. They get it. Buffalo gets the ball back. They've got a situation where Tampa Bay has all 3 of their timeouts, but Buffalo can kind of run the clock out, and they only get 1 first down. They punt it back to Tampa, who nearly wins the game on a Hail Mary. If Chris Godwin just turns his head around, if it's all over the internet, right? Chris Godwin doesn't know where the ball is. His awareness, his Madden awareness was a 1 on that play. If he just turns around, he probably catches the ball, and Tampa Bay wins the game. So if you think about Buffalo, Listen, I know we don't do almost wins and almost losses. The schedule, the record, Bill Parcells said you are what your record says you are. I don't know if I totally believe that to a certain degree, because I think there are solid teams that maybe the record doesn't quite reflect who they are, and good teams where they're kind of a little bit of fool's gold. Minnesota Vikings showed us that last year. But if you're the Buffalo Bills, you're sitting at 5-3, and you could very easily be 3-5. If it's not for an officiating error at the end of the game against the Giants, a clock management error in the first half by Tyrod Taylor, you lose to the Giants at home, scoring 14 points for the record. This game against Tampa Bay, forget necessarily just if just Chris Godwin turns his head around. Numerous plays before that, it's the penalties. Again, I'm not saying Tampa Bay is the Arizona Cardinals or the Carolina Panthers. They're not that bad. Come on, this is a Baker Mayfield coach or Baker Mayfield quarterback team. The red zone execution wasn't always perfect for Buffalo. They failed on the fourth down fourth down for the 1 yard line early in the first half. It's kind of time we come to terms with this is a limited roster and it's a limited coaching staff. Listen, we all know if we went down the list of problems with the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen would be at or near the bottom of the list. Again, I've been critical of Josh. But if we're going to start taking this roster apart, not going into rebuild, obviously, you don't go into rebuild with franchise quarterbacks. You just don't do it. But if you were to sort of take this roster apart, sort of reconstruct it in your own image in terms of what wins today in the NFL, wouldn't the first guy to go be Sean McDermott? And by the way, Ken Dorsey right after him. This is why I said on Monday, there's this guy in Detroit. His name's Ben Johnson, one of the brilliant minds in the NFL offensively. He's going to be available. Going to get a lot of offers to be a head coach, and don't you think it'd be a lot more attractive to coach Josh Allen than, I don't know, let's think about a team that needs a coach, Justin Fields. Now, the Bears may get a star quarterback, we'll see, but given the organizational structure in Chicago, the organizational structure in places like Arizona, Buffalo's a well-run franchise. They have been for a while now. Once they got the quarterback right with Josh Allen, that's why they've had as much success as they've had and been in contention for as long as they have. It's time to sort of, again, you can't do it this season. You can't hire Ben Johnson away from the Lions mid-season. You can't do that. The Bills are what they are. Again, I'm still not totally sold on the fact that they may or may not make the playoffs, because if you look at their schedule, Buffalo, they got Cincinnati next week. The Jets defense, which gave them problems in week 1, they got them a couple weeks after that. They got to go to Philly, to Kansas City. They have Dallas on their schedule. They got Miami on their schedule. They've got some rough games down the stretch. My guess is, again, they'll obviously be in the playoff mix in week 16, 17, 18. I'll still stay on my prediction they miss the playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked if they get on. Obviously, they're 5-3. They are absolutely not one of the 10 best teams in the NFL. Josh Allen's having a little bit of a down season. Played very well last night, but again, it's the roller coaster. It's up and down. You never know which guy you're going to get from a game-to-game basis. But it's at this point, there's a roster problem, and more so, there's a coaching problem. We see Mike Vrabel year in and year out. I know this is a bad year for Tennessee. It's a fire sale for them. They're trading everybody to get the opportunity to trade. But in years past, even last year, Tennessee was not their roster, given their injuries, they were a bad football team in 2022. Again, the record reflects it to a certain degree, 7-10. But they were in the division hunt with the Jacksonville Jaguars, a solid roster, a great quarterback, a great coach. Why? Because they have a great coach. The Tennessee Titans do. There's levels to this. And I like Sean McDermott. Hope he gets another opportunity elsewhere. I don't think he's going to be the guy that gets Buffalo over the top. This gives very much what's a good NBA analogy for this? This gives a little bit of the Mark Jackson vibes, where loved Mark Jackson. I still think it's a crime he's not an NBA coach right now. But Steve Kerr was the guy to get this team the next step with the new offense that he implemented in Golden State. It wasn't just ISO, Steph, save us every possession. It was get the ball moving, cut, 5 out, small ball. That's kind of what the Buffalo Bills need right now. They have the special generational talent at quarterback. They just need to build the right pieces around him. Josh was great last night. And again, Tampa Bay obviously themselves needs to kind of come to terms with who they are. They're a good roster. They're fine. I really like the defensive piece they have. Mike Evans is still a monster. Chris Godwin, again, if he turned his head on the Hail Mary, that would have helped. Tampa Bay's O-line hasn't been quite as bad as I thought it'd be, although it did struggle to a great degree last night. But it's time for them to draft a quarterback. Whether or not Baker will be there as maybe the quarterback's backup, Again, Baker has not been bad this season. I actually fought pretty well. Again, had a passer rating of 91. He wasn't terrible. But again, there are certain limitations to Baker that you're just gonna need to take a guy in this draft. And good chance you probably won't draft. You definitely won't draft high enough to get Caleb or Drake May. But could somebody like Michael Penix Jr., could somebody like Riley Leonard at Duke, could somebody like that fall to you? Maybe. I think that'd be a good pick for Tampa. I don't know. Let's see. I got a comment from my man. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.